The following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin.
Yes. Hey everyone, I'm Christine.
And I'm Steve. I'm becoming the regular temporary guest host.
I love it. And this is 50 Shades of Bullshit, everybody. We are having some wild, interesting technical difficulties today. We almost weren't able to do the show, but we are thrilled to be here, even if there are a few glitches. It's all good. It just reminds me of the good old days when we started out and we were glitching everywhere. There's always a learning curve, you know. So curve. God, I cannot speak either. So hi, here we are talking on a podcast where I can't speak. So thanks for being here again, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. I always love being a guest with you, or a guest host, or a guest co-host, or whatever you call me. I'm not big on titles.
I love it. I'm glad you're here. You know, before we get into the show's called Facing Fear and Reclaiming Power. I want to tell this cute little story that happened today.
Okay.
I played matchmaker in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the post office after work. It's still work. I'm still working, but I'm dropping off stuff at the post office before I head here. Mm-hmm. And there's this little old lady standing in line. And then it was a little old man standing in line. And I say little old because they're shorter than me, you know. And they're cute as hell. They're like 70s, 80s. Until I asked the old guy, and he's like, I'm 92, but don't tell anybody. I said, I won't tell anybody. So anyway.
Now you're telling everybody.
Right. They don't know him, so it's all good. So we are standing in line. And they're chatting, this little lady and guy. And she goes up, and it turns out they're not together. So she's up there. She does her stuff and she walks out. And he turns around and looks at me and goes, man, didn't she have beautiful hair? And I said, yes, she did. Do you know her? And he goes, no, I'd like to know her. I go, well, is she? Go ask her. And he goes, oh, no, I can't. So I go, we're going to find out if she's single. So I start to turn, and the girl ahead of him goes running past me. Mm-hmm. She runs out the door and says, hey, ma'am, are you single?
This is a group setup.
Uh-huh. So then the lady goes, oh, yes, I am. Why? She goes, please don't go anywhere. Please don't go anywhere. So I go, sir, she's single. I go, get out there. And he goes, what do I do? I said, you ask her for a number and ask her out. He goes, what about my spot in line? I said, I'm saving your spot in line. Now go get her, tiger. And he goes running out there, and the girl comes back in, and we're all like watching out the window, me, her, and this other lady. Now more people are coming in, and we're like filling them in. We're matchmaking here, folks. Yeah. They're talking, and we're like, is she going to ask? He's going to give her. And then she gives him her number, and we all start cheering.
Did they hear you, you think?
Probably. And the guy who's doing the working at the post office is like, oh my goodness, where's my matchmaker? Like, people in line are like, we're single. And then the old guy comes back in with this beaming smile, and he's like, thank you for saving my spot, and thank you for matchmaking. She said yes.
No.
And we're like, great. So I'm like, hey, Tom, how old are you? He's like, 92. Don't tell anybody. I swear to God, I thought he was like 78 to 82. He
And do we
looked
know how
great.
old she was?
No, but I definitely younger than him. And she was just this tiny, skinny little thing with this big head of blonde hair. And it was wavy and it was beautiful. And I just said to Tom as he was leaving, I said, "Hey, Tom, we just need to be invited to the wedding." And he's like, "Okay."
Oh.
So now then after that, everybody was saying, "Don't forget me. I'm single too."
It's interesting, quite an interesting segue into fear, because look at this, at 92, 93 years old, still afraid to say, hey, I like you, or hey, I'm interested in you, or hey, are you single? Whatever it is, that almost sounds like there was this quality of boyishness that came out when he was talking to you.
Yes. Isn't that cute?
Yes. And it's so great to know that I don't have to feel so bad when that comes up for me too.
It actually feels so good to be part of that kind of thing. Well, I want to bring Julie in real quick because we're going to be talking about the stuff, and I want her input too. So I want to introduce Julie Demsey. She was on this show a handful of months ago, and I can't remember exactly, but I'll look it up. She is a rapid result mindset coach, a hypnotherapist, and author of Found, Swiping Right on Me to Find Love. She is a former Simi Valley executive turned transformational guide. Julie specializes in helping people uncover and release the subconscious fears that keep them stuck, not just in dating, but in every area of life. Let's bring Julie on. Julie, my girl.
Hi. So good to be here with you.
So happy you're here with us again.
I'm single too. Are you going to set me up?
Yes.
I'm guessing you're not looking for a 92-year-old, though.
No, I'm not. But when my grandfather was that age, he wouldn't have needed you, Christine. He would have done that all on his own. I've got to channel my grandpa sometimes.
Well, I flirted with a dude in my elevator that's not from my building yesterday. I was really hoping he would say, "Oh, you live here?" Obviously. But, I try to be as outgoing and open and personable as possible. And I don't think that a lot of people do because of fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, fear that someone might be, maybe not single, whatever.
Yep. There's so many fears that hold people back when it comes to dating. And it's not just dating, it's also getting into relationships. And it's a lot of things they hold from childhood, from fears that were created around different aspects of their life then, about not fitting in, not being enough, not being lovable. And then we go on through our dating and relationship years and get, unfortunately, a lot of reconfirmation of those things a lot of the time. And so it holds people in fear. And when they're in fear, they're not able to show up as their true authentic self. That is that lovable being that they want to show to the world.
Yeah. I think that many fears today are about, survival, but also about rejection, failure, vulnerability, being judged. And it's our subconscious minds that keep us in these loops of patterns of like, keep us safe, but actually instead of it keeping us safe, it's keeping us small.
Exactly. I had a client a while back who was in her 40s, and she had the love of her life when she was like late teens, early 20s, and he broke her heart, and she didn't have a date since then because she was so fearful. To give her heart, and this would happen again. And we were able to successfully do a hypnotherapy session where we were able to rewire her thoughts and beliefs and open her up to the possibility. And happy to report she started dating not long after that. But it takes some real serious contemplation, if not on your own with a professional, to be able to look inside and say, what are those things that, started out in life protecting me and are now holding me back? And really examining and realizing that's what's happening and being ready to say, I want to switch that. I want to change that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I had listed as a tool today was mindset shifts with hypnosis, and how it can be a subconscious way of unblocking subconscious issues, and it can really help with a fear loop of being able to choose different type of responses. I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, and they're issues that we are conscious of or aware of, and we're smart, capable people, but we're not able to get into the subconscious mind where they're stored to shift and
Makes sense.
create new meaning for those. Often,
Right.
sometimes we can, right? There's work we can do. Like the brain likes what's familiar, and if it's become familiar to that fear that's keeping us from getting into relationships or dating or whatever, or creating bad relationships,
Yeah.
then we can start examining what those things are, noticing them, right? So it's all about, I've got to notice, become aware, and then we can start shifting what is familiar to the brain. So instead of, waking up every day and going, I'm not going to be able to find love, I'm not lovable, there's all these problems, I'm afraid of love, creating new mantras for yourself, waking up in the morning saying, look in the mirror and start with saying to yourself, which is not an easy thing to do, I love you. A lot of people are fearful of that. So start there and get to the point where you're able to do that, and then open yourself up. Yeah, open yourself up to saying, I'm deserving of love. I am worthy of love. Love is coming to me. We don't want to say, I'm no longer afraid of love, because what the brain...
Because the word fear is still there.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that, Julie. So I have a little list here that is how fear shows up in love, work, and self-expression. How it shows up in dating is rejection and feeling like you're not being enough. How it can show up in a career is fear of success or failure, and an imposter syndrome. That's very big. And in daily life, fear of setting boundaries or speaking up or being seen. That was my list. What's your thoughts, Steve, on those type of things that show up in different parts of life?
Well, it's interesting because you said that last one, being seen. I think more than anything else, that's what we want as human beings, to be seen and valued, appreciated. And I think in some ways it also terrifies us. So it's kind of this double-edged sword of like, we really want to take up space and be appreciated and seen for all of us, the good, the bad, the crazy, and known. And then yet we hold it back in some ways for fear that it might not be accepted. So it's kind of very interesting.
I think it kind of reflects also when people are like, oh, I want to be in a relationship, I want to be in love, I want to find this, I want to find that, but then they don't do the work to get to that. And that's also kind of what's that word I'm looking for, where you're doing one thing but saying another, or saying one thing but not doing the follow-up work. It's like self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
It's really when people say, I want a relationship, but they're also saying, it's kind of an oxymoron, because I want the relationship, but I don't want to get hurt. So I'm not going to try for the relationship because I might get hurt. I have a fear of being hurt. And even if somebody's out trying to date, but they're holding that fear in their heart, things aren't going to probably go so well, because we can innately sense that, or we innately do things to self-sabotage.
How do you think fear goes away, Julie? How do you think the fear ever goes away with people, or do you think it's just how we relate to it?
Well, I think it's how we relate to it. We don't want fear to ever completely go away, because we might step into a bad situation if we let it go. I mean, fear is there to protect us. excuse me. So we want that healthy level of fear. But what we need to do is identify where is that boundary between what's healthy
Mm-hmm.
and what's over the line and holding me back. So again, as I was saying, the first step towards that is really realizing that's what's going on. And sometimes we can self-identify, and sometimes we need help with somebody pointing that out to us, because we don't often think of it as fear.
Right. How do you balance honoring fear without letting it make your choices for you? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it does. It's having a conversation with yourself, right? And seeing,
okay.
is this healthy fear? Is this something that's going to save me from going on a date with an axe murderer that I should be able to sense and don't want to do? Versus saying, it's really looking at it and going, okay, this nice guy just asked me out and I'm really excited, but I'm scared to go out. Or there's something that's making me nervous. And it's having a talk with yourself saying, okay, what am I nervous about? Okay, I'm actually nervous because my last relationship didn't end well and I didn't want it to end. And I have fear that the same thing's going to happen again.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm fearful that that will happen again. What if I don't go on the date? Well, if I don't go on the date, I don't have the chance of love. What if I go on the date? Well, I might get hurt, but I might also have an amazing time. Do I want to stop myself from trying to explore this and kind of going through it logically in the mind, where it's like, okay, I still have a little bit of fear inside that I might get hurt, but logically, I know that this is what I want to do. And it's pushing through it a little bit, right? It's being strong and saying, okay, I can hold this fear and I can still take an action with it.
Yeah. And I also like what you said a second ago, where you were talking about asking yourself, what am I afraid of? Because I think that could also answer, if you're answering, I was getting a bad vibe or something didn't feel right. That's then acknowledging that you have an intuition or a feeling about something that maybe isn't fear directly related to, being afraid of a situation rather than a person.
Yeah. And that's a healthy fear to say, okay, intuitively, I think something might be wrong here. But then you've got to explore, am I putting that onto the situation because I really don't want to get hurt? Or am I putting this onto the situation because this person has given me signals that they might not be safe? And it's trusting yourself. You've really got to trust yourself, especially if you're feeling like this might not be safe. And I can tell you, like, through the work that I've been doing, my intuition has heightened, and I can have just be messaging with somebody new and get that feeling, right? I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday, where two guys might send me the same exact text, and one of them I'm like smile, and the other one I'm like annoyed by, and I haven't met either of them yet. So what is that? That's my intuition of who I might actually click with and who I want. And I've tested that out by actually going on some dates, and my intuition's right.
Yes, I love that.
I have a very unfortunately familiar experience on some of the dating apps where someone will respond, and I'll just have this hit that this is a fake profile, and they're just trolling for, what do they call it? Scamming or
right.
I forgot what the word is, but it's like there are some hints in what they say, like there's typos or their grammar is improper. But there's also that feeling that you just mentioned. That's like, oh, this feel. And the number of times that I've engaged anyways, just because I'm bored and wondering how it's going to show up. It's kind of funny, but I know what you're talking about. Via text, you can still feel it.
It's that wild energy is everywhere. We're all actually connected energetically. And I don't think people really realize that when we're arguing with another person, we're arguing with another part of ourselves.
Mm.
It's like when we hate a person or a culture or whatever, we're hating something that's just innately part of all of us. And it's crazy because our energies are really connected. And, people think that feeling energy or feeling this or that is woo woo, but it really isn't. It's scientific, and we all have it, and we're all connected in that way.
Yeah. It's like, what are all the unconscious cues that my nervous system is picking up on that we haven't yet found a way to measure, but we feel it. There's something, and I think we call it intuition. And then there are people kind of dismissive about the word intuition, but there are subtleties that we can sense that we don't know how we're sensing it, but somehow, there's billions of neurons gathering information and feeding it, like billions of neurons. Like, that's a lot of information that how can we actually articulate what this is, but we feel it.
Yeah. And a lot of people will use the word gut feeling, as well. So
yeah,
people need to trust that. I didn't trust it when I was younger. I just thought that I just had this fucking stomach, and why did I get all weird sometimes? I just didn't get it. And because I was living in trauma. So once I was removed from that and, I understood what it was, I started to understand that trusting my gut, my intuition, my instincts was really important. And it's changed my life. And I think that other people can really tune into that and help themselves.
Yeah. And if you think that's too woo-woo, go back to what Steve said. And there's, billions of parts.
Billions
that are going into it. And it's scientifically proven.
Yeah.
And that's what the healthy fear is, right? It's pulling that together and going, I'm going to use this information. I'm going to pay attention to this information. It's important.
Now, I wrote down some questions for you regarding how to take that power back, how to move through once we've acknowledged that we're fearing something. How do we move forward to, overcoming, breaking through, taking power back? So can you walk us through a practical way that someone listening today can start to shift a fear that they're stuck in?
Yes. So if it's a fear, let's take one. I'm not lovable.
Okay, perfect.
Right. If the fear is, I am afraid that I'm not lovable, so somebody's going to break my heart. It's going back to looking at, is that true? Is that really true? Looking at proof points. Well, I have good friends that love me. I have family members that love me. And then coming back to the origin of, I love myself. And if you're not there yet, that's the first place to start with the work.
Yes.
Getting to the point where you can feel that self-love, because if it's not something you can give to yourself, somebody else can't give it to you. But we start there. And so we look for those proof points. We say, okay, I am actually lovable and I'm worthy of love. And I've got proof in the past that I have been loved. Well, is it rational to believe that everybody on this planet should love me? Do I love everybody on this planet?
Good point.
Right?
Good point.
So why should I be fearful of somebody not wanting to enter into a relationship?
I love that.
My mindset to say, you know what? That's not the right person for me. So I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to embrace the fact that I am going to find the right person. And along the way, there are going to be people that aren't right for me. And that's perfectly okay. So you're preparing your mind to step through and get to the point where you say, okay, so with all of these things thought about, considered, and bringing that into my mindset. And the best way to do this, again, is it's hard for it to happen overnight, but our brain will take in new information, create new neural pathways over a period of 30 days. So keep examining this a little bit and thinking it and practicing it every day for 30 days. And by the end of the 30 days, it becomes familiar to think about that and say, okay, So I love myself. I'm deserving of love. I realize that not everybody is going to love me, and I'm not going to love everybody, and that's okay.
Mhm.
So I feel secure, and I'm ready to feel secure, taking that next step to explore, knowing that it's not something to be afraid of, but something to be embraced. Because each
Mhm.
time I do that, I'm getting closer to the person who is right for me.
I love that. Also, I think that a lot of people might be hearing this today and thinking, okay, I may not love myself very much. How do I get to the place to get to that place to be that person? My own personal opinion is my two choices I lean towards is breath work that helps you
Yep.
find yourself quite well,
Yep.
and shadow work, which is approaching your inner younger self and giving them grace and love and support, and working through that. That's what works for me. Steve, do you have a suggestion? And Julie, do you as well?
Yeah, I thought of one that fits in with shadow work is some of our beliefs. And I think one of the primary beliefs I've noticed in myself is scarcity. Like, just as there are billions of neurons in our bodies receiving information, there are billions of human beings out there. And when I am attracted to one, I start thinking like, oh my God, I'm fixated. This is the one. And then it puts all this pressure on, oh my God, what if they don't like me? So I might override some of that gut feeling that is telling me maybe, so I'm so fixated. My attention is out there rather than really trusting and tuning into my own body.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
what if I could just tune in? It's like, yeah, they may look like eye candy, but they're really not a match for me. They are just not the kind of person I feel good around,
Mm.
or whatever. So, trusting that part of ourselves is really, we can get out of a scarcity mindset.
I love
Yeah.
that. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's actually
Mm.
really good. What about
Yeah.
you, Julie?
Well, I'm sure you can guess what I'm going to add. I love all of those, and I'm going to add hypnotherapy.
Yay!
Right, right. And mindset coaching as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All of these are tools, and you've got to find the one that's right for you, right? And
Mhm.
we like to think that we should go I know I was taught, do everything on your own. It's weakness to ask for help. It is strength to ask for help.
Yeah.
And the way we get to
Absolutely.
the place we want to be on our life is creating a team around us who are helping to support that growth and those shifts. And
I
all
love
of
that.
those things are really beautiful ways to work through, and different tools that can be used.
I
That's great.
love I love that. That is great. Here's another one for you. What is one small fear that someone could be facing today who's listening that could make a big impact on their confidence? So one small fear that someone could be facing today that could be making a big impact on their confidence.
Yep. I'm afraid of
Yeah.
I'm afraid of what somebody's thinking about me,
Oh,
right?
that's a good one.
Just
Okay.
walking down the street, somebody gives you a funny look and you're like, oh, they're judging me,
Oh, yes.
right? Um,
Mhm.
or you look at, you see somebody else or that person who's judging you looks like they have it all together, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not as whatever as they are.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
it's stopping the comparison,
Ooh, that's a good one.
comparing
Mhm.
yourself to other people, and it's stopping worrying what anybody else thinks, and realizing that there's only one person that matters.
Yes.
And the best way to build your
My mother,
confidence.
right?
Well, if my mother's watching, she'd say the same. So
My mother passed away, but she's still in my head, right?
exactly.
That's not
Yeah.
one thing, it's your mother.
But it's really coming back to that conversation with yourself and saying, I am enough.
Mhm.
And coming from that self-belief and building your own confidence, so that voice of mom or anybody else gets reduced.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the biggest thing is being as kind to yourself as you would be to somebody else in the world that you really care about, because
Yeah.
we tend to forget that we are harder on ourselves than we are on anybody. And a lot of the work I'm doing with clients, I'm like, do you hear yourself? Would you say that to,
Yeah.
your daughter, your best friend, whoever? And they're like, absolutely not. It's like, well, why would you say that to yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you were just talking about that, I had a flash of when I did my very first breath work session.
Yep.
And I had no idea what it was going to be like or how it was going to be and what. I just was like going to go with the flow. And in the middle of it, the guy guiding you originally at the beginning says, hey, if you start to feel this pain in your body, get up on all fours and rock through it. And just keep breathing through it, because it is trauma coming through. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. I didn't think anything about it. I'm like, that's just not going to happen to me. Oh yes, it did. And I'm rocking. And all of a sudden I just, the word shot out of my mouth. I'm not good enough. I've never been fucking good enough. And all this pain just started just rising and coming. And it was like this voice, this thought. I don't know if it was my mom, my grandma, my inner whatever, or my subconscious that said, what the fuck does it matter? You're good enough for yourself. You have always been good enough for yourself. And once I started letting that go, I just started crying and thinking, I am good enough for myself. All of that was gone. Like, I've never since then, this was like 1, 2, 3, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, that it doesn't matter who I meet. I don't care if I'm good enough for them. I'm good enough for me. So therefore I'm good enough. So what does it matter? And it has made all the difference in my life.
I love that. I love that.
It makes a difference.
It does.
I have a question, may I ask a question about hypnotherapy, and maybe you could shed some light on how that really works, because I know a lot of modalities, particularly cognitive modalities, have you identify a belief or a limiting belief or an issue, and then try to connect the dots to see what were the origins of that. Somatic work, not necessarily connecting the dots, but feeling it in your body, creating some movements like what you just talked about with breath work. That was just movement and breath that allowed something to come up. Well, where did that come from? So my question about hypnotherapy, is it something where connecting the dots consciously is necessary, or even one of the goals? Or don't tell us a little bit about that.
So yes and no. It depends on
I was expecting you to say
want to go.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. So for some, we want to get to that root cause, and we want to understand. And the difference between like cognitive behavioral therapy and talk therapy is then you talk through all of it, and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I'm not a fan.
Listen, it has its place, but it does take a long time, because you're talking through everything, and it's the self-discovery. Like, I personally get tired of hearing, well, what do you think? And I'm like, what the fuck do you think?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Be here if I didn't need help. So the beauty of hypnotherapy is you get into the subconscious mind, you get to connect with that and have that conversation. So you can do that either by getting to the root cause and then understanding. And very often it's something that happened when you were a child. So I'll take the person back and say, okay, let's re-examine that.
Yeah.
You were a child. You didn't deserve to be treated that way. Let's reprogram that and say, that's not me. That's no longer me. I'm now this age. I'm capable to have a voice for myself. And you reprogram, right? And you shift whatever it is you need to shift based on those original thoughts, beliefs that have come into your subconscious mind, so that you're able to shift what's being held in the subconscious. Now, for some people, there's a really deep trauma that they don't want to go revisit at all. So it's getting them into the subconscious. It's understanding, before we get to that point, a little bit about what that trauma is, so you can help through words to shift the thoughts and beliefs without having to completely identify what that origin was.
Mhm.
So it can be
I
done
like
either way. It can be done either way, and it depends. I listen, when I was taught how to do hypnotherapy, there was a prescribed formula of how you elicit a session.
Mhm.
Now doing this for 7 years, I've got that in the back of my mind, but I use my intuition. And does this person need that understanding? Or is that something that's going to open a wound that's so deep that's going to harm that we need to go in a different way and figure out how to just create the words? Because for some people, it's just enough to have those reassuring words of who they are now and come to the understanding and belief of who they deserve to be, without going back to that original.
Do you find that people are afraid of what they could subconsciously say during a session like this, that it deters them from it? Can we maybe explain to them what it could be like, that it's not something to be afraid of or something?
Yeah, I don't know, because if I'm working with somebody and I feel that they're a little bit hesitant, I help them to understand, first of all, your subconscious mind protects you.
Okay.
So it's only going to go as far as you're ready to go today.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's great. Okay.
If it's something you're not ready for. Like once I was working with a client who, it was business, and she wanted to get into, she needed to present her business and had a fear of public speaking. And while we were in, I understood that there was a deeper fear in there, which was the fear of being hurt. And so I kind of gave a suggestion of, when we were talking about something from her history, would it be fair to say, blah, blah, blah? Nope. I'm like, okay, we'll leave that alone. Like, she's not ready to go there. That's it. We'll just focus on. And I knew that would have unlocked so much more than just the fear of public
But
speaking.
you could tell she wasn't ready to go there.
Her subconscious mind wasn't going to let her go.
Yeah,
Now,
that's what I.
Yeah, I have had a crime confessed to me, right? And so I've heard it all. So that's the other thing I let clients know. Like, I've heard it all, and there's no judgment here. This is the safe place. So I can't tell you, like, the percentage of people that come out of a session and say, I've never shared that in my life.
I
And
love
they don't
that.
going, I've never shared that in my life. What are you going to do? What's going to happen? There's a relief of being able to have let that go.
Because they can trust you to be a safe place for them.
Exactly. And so they come out, and that's the first thing they say. And the second thing they say is, I feel so light. I feel so light, because there was this heavy thing that's been weighing them down that nobody knew about. And now somebody knows, and they're still loved, and they're still a good person, and everything's still okay.
How do you think, how do you balance honoring fear without letting it making choices for you?
It's, again, it comes back to what we talked about already, having that conversation with yourself or with a professional to have them help you through that, so that you're really examining it and saying.
Did I ask that question already?
No. I'm just saying, I feel like I
feel like all of a sudden I thought, did I fucking lose my mind and
Before
ask
Julie
that question
joined us, it was you and I were talking about that before Julie hopped on.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I wanted to ask you this, but I think I asked.
Between the two of us, we remember.
Yeah, it's that the answer is the same to the things I was talking about before. It's having an honest, open conversation with yourself to be able to address it, rather than just a quick reaction. And the best way to start that conversation is coming back to your breath work, taking 3 deep breaths to calm and relax yourself and get your nervous system into a place where you can examine with a calm mind, rather than having yourself in that heightened flight or fright response. So calming yourself down, saying, this is okay. It's safe to think about this and to ponder this. And let's just work through it. Is this rational, or is it irrational? Is it a little bit irrational, or a little bit rational, but it's something that needs to be pushed through? And, you play with your own boundaries. What, again, like the same way the subconscious mind works. Is this something I'm ready to examine? And sometimes the best way to do that is to get yourself into kind of a meditative state, which is close to hypnotic state, and see what comes up. Ask yourself the question, like, where is this fear coming from? What should I be doing with it? And just sit and quiet and see what comes up, and see, because something will. And I'm still always surprised when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and you don't have to be sitting doing that either. Like for me, where I get the most clarity is when I'm out for a walk in nature. And I just leave it to the universe and say, give me the information that I need to have today.
I have another question, and this is a term that I use a lot in my work, and I know that a lot of modalities use this. So what about integration? So once people have some opening or some insight in a session with you, how do you, I'm assuming, and you're nodding your head, so you use that term or that model too. How do people integrate what's open for them in a session with you, and how do you support them in integrating?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we do at the end of a session what I call a transformation, where we are integrating the new information and creating that as the information we want to stay with us. So we're creating those new neural pathways. And for hypnotherapy clients, when they've been through that session, I make a recording with that new integrated language that they listen to. It's 8 to 12 minute recording that they listen to at least once a day for at least 30 days to really ingrain that with those and create those new neural pathways so that it becomes a new thought, a new belief. And the more that you repeat that, the more automatic it becomes to go to that new thought and belief.
I love that. Steve, that feel was in my head. I couldn't put it into words. I was like, how am I going to ask her? How do they, you know what I mean? And you asked it. I love this. So I do have a question for you though, Julie. Is it possible for people to do this virtually with you, or do they have to be in person? How does this process work?
Yeah. So I see people in my home office, and I see people from around the world virtually. And it was funny because when I started doing this, Zoom wasn't the big thing, and they called it Skype-nosis because they were using yes. I'm dating myself. They called it Skype-nosis, and they're like, it's just as effective. And I can't tell you my fear of doing my first online session. I was so nervous. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. And actually it's stronger sometimes than in person because somebody's at home in their own comfortable space.
Safety.
So they're able to relax. So it's 100% just as effective, if not more.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So do you think there's a difference between courage and fearlessness, and which one should we be aiming for? Because I say all the time, I am fucking fearless now, but is it courage or is it fearlessness that I'm,
Well, if we come back to what the brain hears, in fearlessness, it still starts with fear.
Fear. Thank you.
And
thank you for setting that straight in my head.
Yeah. And so if you say, I'm courageous.
Courageous.
You're hearing courage.
Yeah.
I love that.
If I just imagine as a somatic practitioner what that brings up in my body, fearless is like I'm bracing myself already to run forward and charge forward like I'm a crusader.
Yeah.
Whereas courageousness is more like a posture. Like
see? Even this old bird learned something new.
Yeah, how about that?
I love that because I have been for a while now. I have lost this heavy fear in life, and so I constantly say I'm just fearless now, and it didn't feel right, but I didn't know what else to use. So courageous or courage. I love that so much more.
Yeah, it's always going to the positive word. And, there are so many words that have a negative connotation, right? like failure, for example, has such a
Yes.
negative connotation. And I work with
Yes.
people who are starting businesses, new businesses all the time. And the reality of the fact is the majority of new businesses will, quote unquote, fail. And so what I always work with people to understand is we need to redefine what failure means. Because in my
Mhm.
book,
Mhm.
the only failure there is if you don't learn from what you're doing.
Mm.
And shutting down a
Okay.
business, I've worked with many people who've shut down a business and gone back to corporate life that they hated and now they love it. So, because they've been able to take the skills and the understanding and the way they handle things into the new. And then if you want to tie that back to dating, let's think
Mhm.
about, rather than a relationship failed, it had its right ending. And
Mm.
I'm on to find a new one that's going to serve both of us better than the past one did.
Mhm.
And that past relationship served its purpose too.
Yeah,
Right.
because I see everything as a learning experience. I may have dated somebody who wasn't the right person, but I got something from it that makes me a better partner for my next opportunity. Or it also shapes my brain into, yes, this is a boundary. Yes, this is a
Yeah.
value to me. Yes, these are things that I need in my life. And I wouldn't have discovered them if I hadn't dated a certain someone. So Steve, you were going to say something a second
Well,
ago?
like we can recontextualize failure. Like I was meant to have this lesson with this person. So rather
Yeah.
than, oh my God, what a horrible relationship. But like Julie was saying, if you're not learning the lesson, you keep repeating that and keep being drawn to the same kind of person. It's like, okay, you didn't learn the lesson. I've had repeats before. Like, I guess I didn't learn the lesson again.
I guess I didn't. Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of being here on earth. The life that you're in right now, we're here to learn whatever challenges we're supposed to, whatever opportunities we're supposed to. It's about learning. I mean, this is the whole point. Julie, how do they find you?
Well, they can find me on my website, which
Mhm.
you see my name there. That's how it's spelled, juliedemsey.com.
I'm going to
I'm a,
spell it for them really quick.
okay.
It's J, for all those who are listening, JULIE DEM S as in Sam EY. Julie Demsey.
Yep, juliedemsey.com. It's funny you say that. I do the same thing with the S's and Sam.
Yes, because that, that sounds like S and F are so close.
Yeah.
But how else? They can find you on Instagram and things like that
Find
too,
me on
right?
Instagram. They can send me an email at julie@juliedemsey.com. Yeah.
I love that. I think taking a step towards understanding or acknowledging that there is growth, there is fear, there is things that you want to get past and move forward to be the best version of yourself, to be that higher version, to you having all the love you want, all the light you want, having all the joy you want. And I think acknowledging it, but then taking steps to figure out what works for you. And I think that this is the type of thing that really could work for a lot of people. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
love this.
And I think it's great to acknowledge your progress. And it's also just as important to, if you have a setback, you don't beat yourself up about it. So when we go back and we're like, oh, I'm learning that lesson again. You don't sit there and go, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I didn't believe, I didn't learn that. I learned that already. Be kind to yourself and say, okay, I just needed that one more time to really set it in. And now I've got it.
Right? Julie, I am looking up your last episode real quick with us before we leave. It was episode 180. So it was like 6 episodes ago. And it was called Finding Love by Finding Yourself. And if you have an opportunity to go back and listen to that one, that is an incredible one. Just like today, Julie, you're an amazing guest. I love having you here. And Steve always comes up with the questions I can't seem to get. So this is a great combo today. I'm loving it.
Hey,
Yeah, lots of fun.
great to
It
be with
is.
both
It's
of you.
really great. Yeah. Thank you, Julie, for always being here when I ask you. You're just like on it. And I had crazy shit happening this week. So you were amazing to just be handling the last minute thing. So My hat's off to you. Thank you. And Steve, you're the man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, time flies way too fast. We are going to be here again next week, same time, same place. And until then, let's just keep this shit real.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50 Shades of _bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.